Glad you could join us on this the webinar on browser security. So my name is Lasse Ibrotveit. I'm the CTO in Conscia, Norway. My background is heavily focused on cybersecurity. I've been working with cybersecurity pretty much since I got out of university around 97 or so. So I'm old, been in the domain for quite some time. And I remember back in the days when we used Mosaic as the browser, when we first took our steps out of Usenet over to Mosaic, Netscape. I've lived through the browser wars. For those of you who remember those, that's, Internet Explorer being baked into everything. I would say that right now, browsers may be probably our most important tools. It's become the thing we access the internet with. Of course, we have apps and everything, but the browser is what we now use to access most things. In Conscia, we use a lot of the Microsoft services, and of course, everything in Office.com is available through the web. Even some of the things are better through the browser because they haven't made specific apps for that. So the browser becomes an incredibly important tool for us in the everyday work life. In addition, it becomes a very personal thing. I don't think I know anyone who doesn't have a preferred browser. I know people like me personally have extensions that they think they can't live without. For me, it's the ad blocking ones and ones removing all the animations off the internet. So we have this tool. We're closely connected to it. We install all kinds of stuff to help us throughout the day. And that becomes, of course, then a potential problem for enterprises. We see the bad guys making malicious extensions, targeting the browser. So we're going to cover that in this webinar, but we're also going to talk about how a browser can be used for good and help strengthen the security in a company. So before we begin, I've already begun. Hopefully everyone can hear me. If not, hopefully you can follow the instructions on the side there. Of course, as with all of the various webinars, you are going to be muted. If you have any questions, please just write them in the Q&A. If they're really good questions, I'll probably interrupt the presenters and ask them directly, but if not, we'll take them at the end when we wrap up. The webinar, of course, is recorded. So if you want to share it with your friends and family, of course, everyone wants to do that afterwards, you'll get the link and you can share it with them. So we're going to go through a few things. We're already in the welcome and introduction phase. We're going to talk about the browser as an attack vector. We're going to talk about the secure enterprise browser and then building a browser security strategy, which is something not everyone thinks about. And we're going to do some best practices. And at the end, we're going to have a live demo with the permissions of the demo gods. We'll see what happens at the end there. But stay tuned. And then, of course, there's going to be a Q&A and wrap up. For those of you who don't know who Conscia is, first of all, welcome. Again, if you know who Conscia is, welcome as well. We're a pan-European company. We deliver secure infrastructure projects to our customers. We deliver cybersecurity services, both as installed engineering services, but also as managed services. We do observability, where we're very much building the secure critical infrastructure for some of the largest companies in Europe. As you can see from the map, we're all over the place, from way up north to way down south. We're currently around about 1,700 employees across all of Europe. Over half of them, so over 1,000 actually, are engineers and analysts. We're a tech-heavy company. That is our DNA. This is how we operate, and this is what we live and breathe for. So we may get a little bit technical when we go through these seminars, but that's just how we're wired. Of course, we've got happy customers and happy employees as well. Now, one thing that I think is really cool about this particular webinar is that we have banded together in the Nordics with Norway, Sweden, and Denmark in presenting this. This is something that happens quite regularly in Conscia, that we have. It's easy to cross borders. We share knowledge, we have ideas, and we work together to realize them. And this webinar is part of one of those collaboration efforts in Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. We need something to do in the dark times anyway. So I've got Martin from Sweden, who's going to come after me, and then Christian from Denmark, who's going to be talking and also giving the demo. Two very, very great colleagues of mine, extremely skilled, and I'm so happy that they could join us in this. So I'm just going to pass it over to Martin. The presentation is yours, and the browser is an attack vector.
So my name is Martin Hall. I work as a solution architect here in Conscia, Sweden. Been working with security the last 10 years at least, but I started with a background in the 90s as well as Lars. So been in the network area and security area for quite some time. And today I will focus on the secure browser. Let's see what we have when it comes to challenges. Let's see why we need a secure browser. And then I will hand over to Christian, who will explain what the secure browser can bring to the table. So if we start by looking into the modern browser, why do we need it? Well, basically, as Lars just said, it's an awesome tool. It's a wonderful tool that gives you a lot of opportunities. You get access to different applications. It's fast. It gives the user the experience that it's easy to use, and you get all the bells and whistles you need in one magic tool. You have the ability to remember trust and reuse trust, so you might log into your browser and get access to your applications and keep that trust during the day. You may run applications like a platform, host JavaScripts or other applications inside your browser that gives you some extra, some extra features that you're missing otherwise. You can connect everywhere, to your SaaS applications, to your private applications from home, from wherever you're residing, basically. You can connect to anything from one simple tool. And the browser is designed to make us fast. It's easy to copy and paste. We can upload files, download files. We have all these features within the same tool. When you look at the situation right now, the trend is that on knowledge workers like us, we spend more than half of our working day within the browser. Is that really true, you might think? And it is, because it doesn't matter if you're active in the browser or if it's open behind what you're doing in other applications. So if you look at some critical surveys, up to 85% of your working days is actually spent in your browser because it's somewhere on your desktop the entire time. Do we solve that issue by screen protection or by putting our computer behind, what do we say? When you lock your computer, basically you don't, because the browser is still active in the background with established sessions. So the issue with the browser is that when it gets abused, the attacker becomes you. Often after MFA, often after you have applied all your identity security, it still becomes you with an open session to your critical jewels. So if the browser is where we spend most of our days, it's also where we need consistent protection in the session, not only to rely on the network, nor the endpoint itself. As Lars mentioned, another vector that we are seeing threats in today is the extensions being installed in the browser. It's there, available for everyone. You can download the extension. No one really looks into what it's doing on your computer, but the extension resides inside your browser. With the permissions you are having, the extension is having the same permission to your secret sauce, the critical apps, your crown jewels if you want to. So what is the challenge with extension? Well, as I mentioned, they have access to what you have access to. And often users install extensions that might be malicious because no one knows whether it's okay or if it's not okay. Recent trends have identified that we see supply chain incidents with extensions. It might start to be a really good extension in your browser, but after a while it gets acquired and it turns bad. How do you know whether or not the extension is okay over some period of time? We do allow users to self-install extensions. And as many other cases, you get the friendly pop-up, do you allow the extension to do whatever it's supposed to do? And you tick, click, and move on. But what did you actually allow? And is it you allowing that extension to do whatever it's supposed to do? Or is it a company decision? And last but not least, extensions auto-update, meaning they change behavior over time. So the friendly extension in the beginning might get some additional features that might be challenging for you to secure. So the takeaway is, if you don't control extensions, you're effectively allowing third-party code to operate inside your authenticated SaaS sessions with access to your crown jewels. It's the reality when it comes to traditional web security. You can't inspect what you can't see. We're seeing nowadays, when you look at Google Transparency Report, that more than 95% of the traffic on internet today is encrypted. Browsers enable it and servers enable it because they want to ensure data privacy from an end user perspective. And that's a really good thing. We need it, we want it. We want to be sure that what I'm sending over internet is secure. But the problem is that encryption is evolving. For us to successfully identify what the users are doing, and if they download something malicious, we need to decrypt the sessions. We started with TLS 1.0, 1.1, up to 1.2. That was fairly simple to do. Now we're seeing TLS 1.3. Most firewalls can still decrypt 1.3. But what about Quick, HTTP3, certificate pinning, encrypted client hellos, DNS over HTTPS, and so on? Encryption methods are evolving. It's a hard catch-up game for the firewalls to cope with. We do see coverage gaps. And what I mean by coverage gaps means we are not always behind our security stack in the office. Many of us are working from home. I know Lars is today, as well as Christian. We are sitting home, and now it's my local personal firewall protecting my computer and nothing else. So even though we build a shiny stack of security devices, we might find some coverage gaps where the encrypted traffic might not be inspected. Other challenges are privacy and regulatory constraints, where we basically are not allowed to decrypt the traffic. What about your healthcare information or banking information or whatever it might be that's personal to you? We are, as a company, prevented to decrypt that kind of information and fully inspect it, which leaves a security gap into my computer. A recent trend is modular delivery. And what I mean by modular delivery is that the malware is rarely nowadays being delivered as a single file. We see it being fragmented, and we get bits and pieces from different web sessions, all being aggregated in the browser itself. So if you open a link, you get one piece of information from there. Then you have a second link on the same web page or a second session being established, and you get the final pieces so the browser can build the malware locally. But how do you protect yourself against that kind of threat? So the takeaway is relying on network inspection leaves blind spots. That's why we need control closer to the where the risk happens, inside the web browser sessions. Some real-world examples of threats going on inside the browser. All the purple boxes here identify different areas where the browser is exposed and where we have challenges not only to identify but to prevent security threats. If we start at malicious extensions, we mentioned it a couple of times. We saw at least two major incidents last year where 16 versus 40 malicious browser extensions was identified as extreme phishing attacks or other abuses where they could extract information and send it to the attacker, basically. When you look at the scale, you can see that more than 3.2 million users were affected by the first extension injection. The second one, we don't have any information, but I'm sure it's over 1 million at least. If we look at phishing kits, we've seen them for quite some time. I just took one out of many. Ghost frame. It's using what we call iframe-based phishing that rotates contents, meaning if I open a web page, a lot of different web pages are open at the same time within that frame. Each session had its own destination. So each victim basically opened a new session towards a new site. And how do you keep track of the different sites in your network security stack? It's almost impossible. Finally, AI. There is not a modern presentation without AI being introduced, so we thought, what the heck? Let's add it here as well. Gen AI is being used as well to extract information nowadays. The browser itself is probably allowed to talk to your Gen AI tool, in this case, Copilot in this attack. You click on a link, and the link triggers a prompt in your Copilot to capture data and send it to an external site. And we often allow Copilot, ChatGPT, whatever it might be, in our environments because we want to be more productive, but we have a hard time to filtrate the prompts being injected into the tool itself. All of these three attack vectors can be solved by a secure browser. So the takeaway on this is the attack lives in the session. The solution is to control extensions, stop phishing, and govern in-browser data actions like AI reprompting. So you might say, well, we have EDR in place, so we are safe. It's not an issue in our environment. And that is not totally true, unfortunately. EDR, endpoint detect and response, is an awesome tool that helps you to see processes, identify malicious files, and work with some of your network connections. However, it's kind of blind of what's going on within the session in the browser. It's hard to fit the bits and pieces together to get a full view of the browser actually is doing. Many of you have evaluated at least data loss prevention as well. A way to control whether or not a file is okay to leave the company, or if we should keep it inside, if we are able to copy-paste information and expose it to the outside. But it's pretty complex with DLP. It's hard to govern copy-paste actions. It's easy for the users to bypass, so it's a constant catch-up game, if you want to, where you need to all the time strengthen your security and prevent screenshotting and print PDFs. And once you close that door, another door opens, something new happens. You might take a picture of a screen and so on. To make it even harder, how do you control each and every version of the operating system on your devices? How do you keep control of the applications your users are using and how they change over time? And if you allow different versions of operating systems or applications, well, then you have a large mix of different components that you need to keep track of. So it steals a lot of time to be on top of the DLP initiative. Not saying you shouldn't do it, but it's hard. So when it comes to the end user perspective, when it comes to DLP, they often choose convenience in the moment. I want to be able to access my application, regardless if it might be dangerous or not. This is important for my work. So I click OK on the little tick box. And they are in control over classifying whether it's public or secret, the material you're using in your environment. But the biggest challenge, without a doubt, without any competition, is unmanaged endpoints. Most of you allowed today bring your own devices in the environment. According to statistics, about 90% of all companies allow bring your own devices into their environment without any endpoint detection being installed. Mergers and acquisitions, third-party access, vendors, and so on. You are not in control over their devices. So how do you know whether or not it's secure? And that is, in fact, the most common entry point for any breach in ransomware nowadays. It depends on where you look at the data, but up to 90%, according to Microsoft, of all breaches in modern environments are related to unmanaged endpoints. So endpoint security is definitely necessary, but it doesn't constantly control what happens inside your SaaS sessions. It can't cover the unmanaged devices where the risk often is the highest one. Then you might say, okay, so we have EDR, that's not fully covering our challenges, but we also invested a lot of money into network control. We have new shiny products and we are racking and stacking them on top of each other. As soon as there's a new bell and whistle, we purchase it. And that is all good. Continue to do that. It's needed. It's something we really need to enforce network security because segmentation is still needed, right? We can't have all our users in the same segment, so we need network control to segment. We need to support OT devices, IoT devices that's using the network as well. So we definitely need a strong security in the network. But if we're not able to decrypt, then we only see what we see. The unencrypted data traversing the security stack. Everyone else, like the bad guys in orange shirts here, they can carry whatever they want in their briefcases, in the payload of what they're sending, without us knowing what's happening inside of it. As mentioned before, almost all packets, all traffic traversing our network stack today is encrypted. Decryption is nice, it's there for a reason, to provide security and privacy to the users, but it makes it hard at scale for us to be in control of what's happening in the network. Additionally, in mature environments, policy hygiene is extremely hard because if we allow something or disallow something, we need to add exceptions. The manager calls, I need to reach a certain system, you create an exception, then you add a new exception and then a new one. But who is cleaning up the exceptions afterwards? They tend to stay there for life. And it's also hard in practice to continuously inspect all of the established sessions. Because once they're open, many of the networking tools today, they allow the session until it's ending. So the session is there transparently running through the network devices until the session ends. And that is a perfect opportunity for a hijacker to hijack the session and put in some malicious code or do whatever they want to. So all in all, I believe that we have now covered some of the challenges. Network security is definitely there to stay. We need it. We need it for various reasons. Endpoint security, definitely needed as well. But we need something that's able to look inside of the browser session to identify the threats being conducted in the browser itself. And that is where I hand over to my colleague Christian, who will talk to you about one of the secure browsers available in the market today.
One more, like that. Good. So what is this secure enterprise browser? Now, I will be going a little bit more in the weeds on it, a little bit more in technical depth. But first, my name is Christian, and I'm a security architect from Conscia as well. I've been coming from the delivery side of the organization, where I've seen the travel from layer 3, layer 4 inspection firewalls, where we could see IP addresses, and then all of a sudden we got web proxies, next generation firewall, and we marveled that we could see URLs and applications. And then at some point in time, we kind of stopped having all that visibility, and we kind of only said, oh, it's something related to Google. And it was like, oh, what now? And then we did SSL inspection, and again, we were happy. And then came certificate pinning, and then came TLS, and then came all these things, which we have already heard. But from like the guy who often had to deliver it, it was kind of like really annoying to have like this catch up, because we are in the wrong place of the food chain, so to speak, from a security perspective. I like to think of it as we have like a big umbrella. We put it out in front of the infrastructure. We will cover everything, but we will only do it at a certain granularity level. Then we get, it could be a firewall. Then we get closer to the endpoint. It could be the EPP. Then we get way more insight and granularity, but still only seeing what's around the endpoint. But when we're talking about the browser, then we get all close and personal on the user himself, and that gives us a lot of controls and a lot of functionality. And that's why I'm a little bit passionate about this particular subject, because I often now in a role where I talk to CISOs, etc., and it's very much I have this and this problem, and I don't want my stuff to leave my corporate. I'm afraid of losing all data to AIs or whatever it is. And it's like, yeah, but this is actually a very tough problem to solve. And I think that this particular solution is actually the answer for some of those concerns, such that we don't no longer need just to say, well, tough luck, you got to risk accept that because it's too hard to do something about it. So first thing first, I think we need to like be very sure on what is it that we're talking about. So there's actually not a lot of vendors in this space right now, but one of them is one we work a lot with. It's called it's Palo Alto Networks, and they have a product called Prism Browsers. There are also others. I will try to distinguish when I'm talking very product specific and when it's more in general. But most often it's kind of the same that we try to fix with the technology. And even though I have a lot of hate with Gartner, they do have this quote down here saying by 2030, most people will actually have this particular problem, or not problem, but solution, and actually be part of their core platform for delivering the security, because it is, at least in my perspective, the only place that you actually can enforce these things. As Martin said, we're not getting rid of the others, because if you only have a personal at the user, well, then you are blindsided on everything else. So we still need all that stuff, but this is where we can actually leverage and where we can solve some of the use cases that we hear. But in this particular solution from Palo Alto, it's a Chromium-based browser, so it's an executable a user will download. It's perfect generic. You could download it for your Mac, your Windows, your tablet, whatever, and it's just a blob of data. When you then execute it, it will ask, who are you? Then you will log in through your preferred IDP, and that will then trigger that you download a policy profile, which then is what I am supposed to do with your particular rule set. So it's a per user rule set that we will be pushing out there. That makes it very scalable. It makes it much manageable, and it ensures that you have like coherent security. Important note on this is also, while your normal browser, whatever it may be, you can access the SaaS applications online. But you can also access your, let's say, your vCenter down in the cellar on an IF 1918 address, a local address, 10.something. This browser also provides a way of getting inside your data center, and it's not bad as it sounds. It just provides a seamless tunnel through a cloud connector, but that's optional if you want it. But it makes it such that the user can connect from wherever and have the same experience, no matter if he's logging on from Bahamas, or if he's logging from home, or is he logging from the office. Everything is, of course, configurable. So all these have in common, these security browsers, that there are like three main columns that we want to like address. One is we want a secure environment, and I will hit on every one of them and tell you a little bit more on them. So the secure environment, I think it's good, it's interesting, and it works well, probably works better than how we would normally try to solve these, but that's not where I'm getting all excited. I'm getting all excited when we're talking about the second column, which is the last mile data, because this is where we are in the browser. We're there where the stuff gets rendered, where data like hits the screen. So we are on the other side of encryption. We are on the other side of everything, and we can see everything because it's open and accessible. And there we can do a lot of stuff. And that's where it becomes very interesting from a use case perspective. But I also think that we have a tendency of focusing very much on what can we do from a security perspective. I also think that the functionality perspective is interesting. The hiding in functionality, the strengthening of productivity, so to speak, because it's now we have like the single pane of work, let's call it that. I'm assuming that you can agree that we tend to use quite a lot of time on the web browser. If you don't, try to hit that screen time in the macOS if you're using that, and try to see how much time you're actually using in the browser. It's like ridiculously amount, for most people at least. But also that we can cover use cases over here where we are not longer tied down to, it has to be that specific endpoint. It has to be that specific device, that we can actually say, yeah, but you want access and you are this. So we can tie in an identity to the solution. I will hit that on a use case. But to go a little bit deeper on it, so you download this blob of files, you log into it, it raises walls around it, to put it a little bit figuratively. Those walls are put in place such that whatever you do within this browser, like history, file downloads, etc., those are contained from the operating system. So the operating system cannot see anything in here in this contained environment. Again, everything is configurable, so you can say, but because you are you, then you may have access to, putting out files from within that environment to the operating system. If you need that, you can log it, you can do a lot of things. But it also makes sure that we are protecting it against, let's say I was on a WebEx call, like here. I actually didn't want any participants outside my organization to see certain sites, certain functionalities. I could block that completely out and say, okay, just because I'm on a Teams call, you can no longer see my Gmail. I think that's a very interesting case because often we have private Gmails and we will often be logged into them, and then it will pop up when people share the screen, and I'm really not that interested in how many dresses your wife have bought, etc. So it will just blank that out, or you can then on demand say, yeah, but I need that, I want that. I'll show you. And then of course there's a whole activity audit, so we get a full log on what's going on. We can do what the user have done within. We can do session recording, interesting technology, so we can see how people served within a page. We can do a lot of from a SOC perspective, very interesting thing. Why did something go wrong? Well, it was because first he clicked in there, then he moved his mouse down there, then he executed that. You can see that in a recorded, like a video of what actually happened. And then of course there's the more traditional stuff. We will protect against web threats. And we will say if it's a bad URL, we will shoot it down. If we don't want you to have access to this and this particular application, we'll block it. And then of course we also have a whole subset of like extension security, such that we can say these extensions is allowed, these are not allowed, you're not allowed to install, you're allowed to install but only these. So you can actually granularly control what you want to achieve. The reason why I'm excited about this particular part of it, the secure environment, but it's not the main part for me, is because some of these things we could do already through like web proxies, SSL decrypted. It may not be practical. It may be that it requires some effort, pushing out certificates, buying big chunks of hardware, etc., but it may be doable. So I could go tell the CISO, you don't need to risk accept this because we may have a technical solution for this. But I would argue that we do it better here because, for instance, let's go with the URL categorization, saying this Reddit, good big place on the internet, has a lot of stuff. If I need to access that, I need to do filtering on it of some sort, Reddit would, and all the sub URLs will just be Reddit because we cannot look into it because it's SSL encrypted, which means that we will only look at the, like, in the beginning. Now it gets a little technical, but in the beginning we will see that it is Reddit, but no more than that. So that information is in the clear. Then everything just becomes. But when we're in the browser has the whole URL. So the browser knows exactly what URL you are accessing here. So I know that you are accessing this subreddit, which discusses how to hack the whatever government, or this is extremism, whatever. So it's very potent, both from a SOC perspective, but also from a traffic engineering perspective. There's also like virus detection, sandboxing capabilities, stuff like that, which kind of was devoid earlier because it was like, again, the files were transmitted in encrypted format, which meant that we couldn't see it, at least from an infrastructure perspective. Then we had to rely on the EBP, which of course we would argue that was necessary for that. But again, that's also something that we can see because we're sitting at the rendering layer, so to speak. So we're seeing at the other end of the tunnel. I also think it was interesting to note that some of the troubles that we often see from a deployment perspective is that we're centralizing security functionality, which is can be very hard on technology because it's this goes a lot of horsepower into doing decryption, for instance. Here, everything is decentralized. So it's the local browser which actually does the decision. So it has the policy set. Of course, it will phone home for various threat updates, et cetera, but it's the browser itself which does the enforcement. But this is where it gets good. It was already good, but now it gets great. So last mile control. This is where I can do stuff which I had no way of doing before, because where I'm, for instance, if I was seeing, let's say I wanted to block that subreddit something, I had to do it like it's an all or nothing when I'm doing an infrastructure because I have a connection. I need to drop the connection. I cannot drop a little bit of the connection. I need to drop everything. So what I can do here is that I can, and that's what the screenshot here shows, I can take out pieces of information, subparts of a page, and blank them, remove them. If I see a particular component, I can ask for step up MFA, saying if I see this particularly DLP word, which is part of my country's sensitive data, I can ask for it to be masked out. Or I can also say, if you need to access it, you need to provide me with a better excuse on who you are. That could be, now I want MFA. Even though the system itself does not support MFA, I can still support it because the access to it is through the browser. And then there's a lot of different other things that I can do. I can control, can you print, can you turn on your microphone, can you screenshot this? Are you allowed to copy paste between, should be able to upload, download files, et cetera, all these, where it's, now we're down in the very granular data control set, which is like, I had no way of doing this with infrastructure components before. And that's what I think is really, really cool about this particular technology. And I will show it later, no worries. And if you are, like me, coming from an infrastructure background, it looks and feels a lot the way you're used to. It feels like a normal firewall rule set. You're saying, so what's my scope saying? What's my user? It's 80. Usually it's 80 groups. So I can say the HR, they are allowed to access my HR data. They can see everything. But if I, as a IT admin, let's call it that, want to access that, or I cannot unless I do step up MFA, or I can only do that if I raise a ticket on a request for that particular information. Then someone has to acknowledge that, yes, it's not part of your daily routine, but we can make it work. So that's how it also operationalizes well, because there's a lot of knots in there which actually make this plausible and doable. And I really like that as well. It's top down. You can say it's this particularly user group this device coming from your home country, it's fine. You can access this and this data. If you're on an island somewhere, sunny, not as here, it's more sunny, and a beach, and you're using your kid's iPad because that was the only thing that you dared take through customs. You didn't want to bring your laptop. Who knows what might get confiscated and turned around. So you just took that iPad and you fetched the generic binary, you logged into it, it got all the right policies, and it created that tunnel to that internal HR system that you needed to punch in a few things in. Well, great. Then you're off, then you're working. And then you could actually say, okay, because you're coming from a different country, we need to step up or do ticket and whatever we needed to do in addition to what we would normally do. So you can kind of see how you can do different. Again, I'm calling it use cases because that's what I'm often seeing, that we have this very particular problem. Can we solve that in some way? We have nurses going around visiting a lot of citizens. They have very sensitive data on their iPads, but the screen, does that need to show all that information at all points in time? Or should we mask it for like normal operations? It could be like social security numbers. And so like names and everything is there, but social security numbers, those are blanked out. And then if she needs it, she can click a button and it will reveal it. Again, it's operationalizing things very well. Then there's the whole user experience as well, because now we are in the browser. I actually did my thesis on web acceleration back in the days. Very interesting technology. And at that point in time, we could do a lot of things because we could see everything, right? We could cache it and we could do stuff like that. Right now, these days, well, perhaps bandwidth is no longer that much of an issue, but latency is. And we can actually enhance that user experience by prefetching a lot of things. But that can only be done if you can see what do you think that the user will be clicking on next. And you can see that because you have like the page, so you know all the links on the page. So you can just, if bandwidth is no problem, you can just get them in advance. So that's very nice. Also, I think that the case of having onboarding of users in a quick way, it's very nice. So if you have a consult, you need to onboard a consultant, you need to fix your firewall. You need to ship a PC to him. You need it to be updated. You need to have VPN. You need access to this and this system. Try to imagine that you just need to put him into your IDP. Yeah, he has access to that. Then you need to do a rule in the policy set. So yes, now when he logs in with these credentials, yes, he can go directly into. Then he can access, but only access the web UI of the firewall. You don't need to get him the password for the firewall because there is a built-in password manager which we can share that particular password with him, so we can use that. And we're not that concerned about him messing up because we have a session recording of everything, every little checkbox he has set, so we can see that if we need to. And then when he's done, well, we'll just deprovision him from the IDP, and then the browser itself will actually close down. So it's a very, very flexible. You can it ties a little bit into VDI, but not exactly because it's more distributed. Let's see if I can get to the next one here. So then the good question is, and I often get this, so that's why I'm bringing it up here. So what is preventing someone else from just taking another browser and logging into whatever systems? If I am controlling everything from the browser and I'm just using another browser, then I'm losing the controls, basically. But what I then can do is that I can use conditional access. So most of these systems, they have they're doing SAML authentication in some way or form, and I can just say, well, you cannot access this system unless. So the SAML will then go in and say, if you're not providing me with the right either IP from, we can tunnel stuff, we can do it IP based, but most often we would do it certificate based. So if you're not showing me a correct certificate, which we have distributed through the platform, then you're not allowed to access at all. That will disconnect every other browser for that particular service in that particular way. And then you can mix and match your conditional access in order to make it work. It's just because it is often a concern. I've heard. There is also a more, if it doesn't support SAML, you can also put it behind a firewall, and then we can do some user identity stuff. Anyway, there's also other solutions for that, but this would be the preferred one. This I won't go through at all, but it's just to show you the breadth of it. And there is a lot of controls, and these controls often ties directly into various use cases. It could be that there is the consultant use case, there's the bring your own device use case, it's the DLP use case, it's the, oh, I'm afraid of losing. It could be regulatory, it could be, I need to watermark everything. All these different things, great ideas as CISOs sometimes have, which is like way difficult on infrastructure components, or even impossible. We can do that when we are on the endpoint. And with that, I will hand it back to Martin, and stay tuned for the little demo at the end.
But now you know about the product itself, how it works, and what you can do to some extent, at least. If you are able to read all those small tiny boxes Christian shows you, that's only a fraction of what you can do. There are even more. And what we're seeing now is that we are introducing CyberArk into the Palo portfolio. We are seeing that SSH and RDP is also available, not only HTTP traffic. So there are a lot of shiny tools that we can use within the security browser. What I will try to focus on right now is how you can build your browser security strategy, to some extent at least, the fast I can, because I know you all want to see the demo in the end. But let me start by identifying that we are not replacing anything when adding a secure browser. We are adding the last mile controls, basically. So it's still relevant, or even more relevant, with a secure identity structure, with MFA covering all your tasks and applications. We still need the network layer to protect your network, without a doubt. We still need the endpoint security on your computer. We're just adding a new tiny product to secure the web browser and what's going on there. What does it mean from a hybrid workforce when we add the security browser? Well, basically, we can provide a unified security framework, regardless of whom it is, wherever they're sitting, even if it's a third-party device accessing our crown jewels. We can apply the exact same security controls to protect the data that you are extracting or getting into or from your crown jewels. And we get visibility into what's going on. So when you work with Salesforce or Office 365, whatever it might be, we have the exact same security rule set for whomever it is, wherever they're residing. So we are no longer in need of the shiny network security stack to protect our users. We can protect them even when they're sitting from home. So instead of trying to perfectly secure every device and network path, secure the place where the work happens within the browser. So where do you start? Well, basically, you can't cover it all. If you want academic perfect solution in place within a few hours, it's never going to happen, right? You need to cherry pick what's most important to you, where you need to start this initiative. Identify your topmost applications in the beginning. What hurts the most if the data is exposed from these applications? Don't forget to challenge whether or not they're using SSO and MFA, because it's still a strong attack vector to access these kind of applications. Try to categorize your web categories. You might have internal applications, external applications. Can you enforce a consistent policy, regardless of what kind of application you're talking about? Identify your known pain points. Unmanaged devices, already talked about it quite a bit, but identify how you want to handle unmanaged devices. Because they are typically the biggest blind spot in your environment today. Once you capture these three categories, review what's going on in the real world when it comes to incidents. How would they affect these 10 applications, these 10 web categories? So you narrow it down to your focus area and don't try to solve it all. If you don't have Copilot, don't focus on Copilot. Focus on ChatGPT or whatever you're using in your environment, but keep it small and tidy so you can start the deployment of a secure browser. Once you have that under control, try to create a few tiers. This is just plain simple example and nothing else. But tier 1 in this case identifies your high risk, high impact information. That is admins, that might be HR, that might be upper management, who needs extra information from your crown jewels. If we can separate them and give them specific access and enforce the access to your crown jewels, we come pretty far. What we should do and focus on the tier 2 devices, which is standard enterprise users, is to protect them. Don't enforce a lot of new security that will block things and prevent them from doing their work. Make it as transparent as possible, but ensure that they are protected with a good phishing protection, a good extension management, and that the applications they're using are under control. Where you probably should put in the most of your energy is on tier C in this case, the external unmanaged devices. It's pretty simple to allow them to download and install Prisma Browser, as we just saw by Christian. Start enforcing what you can do on these devices. Maybe they're not allowed to have read-write permissions to your applications. Maybe you shouldn't allow them to download information from your critical applications. Try to narrow it down to what they actually need to do and nothing else. So the key takeaway on this slide is basically, we're not promoting to lock down everything. Apply the right controls where the risk and the value are the highest. Prisma Browser lets us enforce controls inside the session and consistently identify whether or not new threats arise. So to balance security, experience, and productivity, again, as mentioned, start with the crown jewels. They are the most important data in your environment. Protect the workflows, don't break them. Ensure that you are secure and the information your browser is getting is under control and don't expose you to threats. And coach first. Coach your users. This is nothing you are supposed to do, but allow them to continue in their production environment so you don't break what they're doing on a daily basis. By having this short, memorable activities, you can prove values in weeks instead of months. It's easy to deploy, easy to implement without breaking any productivity. And finally, pilot first. Always pilot first. And don't forget to invite stakeholders from different organizations so you don't only turn to the IT guys. Hey guys, I have a new shiny tool, let's play around with it. Because then you miss the important stuff that the managers are needing in their daily business. Capture the metrics so you can fastly tune if something breaks, but also so you can prove improvement, because how do you know if a secure browser deployment was successful unless you can prove how it works before you start the initiative? With that being said, we have 5 minutes to go, Christian, so I will hand over to you for a quick demo.
I will show some quick good takeaways on it. Cool. Otherwise, just interrupt me. So I've cheated because time flies. So this is actually it. This is the Prisma browser. I logged into it. Well, actually, it's single signed on me in. It looks very much like Chrome, and it's because it somewhat is Chrome. It's just, well, at least it's based on a very good portion of it. I will just show you a few things So if I go into like a random page, in Denmark, as of lately, we have like some issues with the geopolitical climate. So I was thinking of finding a word that would probably stick. So here I'm showing you a data masking word. I don't know if you can guess it, but you will see that there is this blind spot here. If you cannot guess it, let me just unmask it for you. It says that are you sure you want it? This can be seen now. Okay, it's good. So now you can see that what the secret word was for this particular. Another case was like, that's the security part of it. That's the basic stuff. This is just, now we'll flat out block it. This we would probably also have been doing on DNS security or URL firewall, etc., etc. But this we can also do directly in the browser. And then we don't need to push traffic out through like boundaries out there, SSEs or backhauling it through inspection. So we can do that as well. We can also have something which like more. So we are going to a gambling site. This is actually discouraged, but well, proceed anyway. We can gamble. It's a good thing. And so again, we're kind of nudging people into stuff, but we don't need to block them. Another cycle you can say, this is just not allowed. If you don't know why, please read the handbook, the employee handbook. But we can then request permissions. We actually want, can we please have it because we need this to work? And this could be tying into that consultancy use case I gave you, saying, I have actually now provided you all the access. Everything is good and ready, but I don't want you to log in before our service window is. So when he comes to the service window, he will then say, please give me permission. And there's an internal ticket system, which you can automate, of course. And then that would give me, then when someone clicks that button, say, yes, you're allowed, it will provide me with the access. ChatGPT, again, I did a disclaimer on the people who are going. This is not the one we usually use. Please do not submit anything you find is GDPR related, etc. And I'm the good employee. I know exactly what I'm doing. Every employee know exactly what they're doing. So let's just check if is 1212. This is a Danish CPR number format, by the way. So, and when I click the last button, it will say, oh, you're pushing in sensitive data here. You really shouldn't do that. Okay, so this is input detection so this is the keyboard. Okay, I know what I'm doing. Then you will also see that I'm still also data masking it because it is sensitive data. I don't want that to get into the open. So even though it's rendering it on the fly, it's still manipulating the representation layer for the user. So imagine again that nurse who had it could also be a bank or receptionist as well. A receptionist who has all the information on all the people who lives in the hotel. It's on the screen. Does it need to be on the screen all the time? Perhaps not. Perhaps I only need parts of it, so I could remove those parts which are sensitive. And if she needs them by chance, she can unmask them in the session in the browser. Only if she needs them, of course. As was mentioned, we also do RDP, SSH in the browser. So, and this is also being recorded, by the way. So even though I'm sitting on Bahamas and I need to create a rule, this is not a switch, but then it would actually allow me to do that, and it would record everything as well. And it doesn't require any more, stuff on the endpoint. And everything is being tunneled through the backend as well. So even though I'm on Bahamas, no one is seeing what I'm doing. And I disconnected. There's also the password manager.
We're on time, but I don't think we pay per minute on WebEx. So if you want to continue a little bit more, it's absolutely fine.
Yeah, because there is a lot of different cases I have prepared just for you. So this is a file containing sensitive data. Now I'm downloading it. So it looks into the file and says this has plenty of sensitive data, which it should, because it's like the demo for trying to filter sensitive Danish data. We'll proceed anyway. Let's download that. So what I wanted to show was that that we have the walled garden. So now we downloaded it, and that's fine. But if I open up my Finder here it will see it has this weird ending. That's because it's encrypted. So the browser itself encrypts every file that it sees and puts them down in an encrypted format. So the only one who has the access to these files is the browser itself. So I could now take this file and I could do another SaaS and I could upload the file again. And that would work perfectly fine if the policy permitted it. But if I needed to access this on my corporate machine, I would need to unlock it. If I have the permission again, I can do that. So if I'm just clicking the right button here, you can see it here. It's a TV file, it's unrestricted. And apparently I don't have the permission set. Anyway, if I had the permission for this particular user, there would be like an icon here saying, yeah, if you do this, you will actually be allowed to do it. It is here. So this is a 1. So if I click the icon which is not there, the padlock, then it would open it, and then the operating system would be able to see it again. So that's just the way. And as soon as I withdraw access to the system, these files become totally trash. It's nothing. So the whole, where is my data? Can you tell where it resides? Have people download, etc.? You're actually also in control with that. So that's also a pretty nice, feature. Again, we are over time, so I don't want to. But this is also just doing a lot of sensitive data, and you can see it just blanking it out as it goes. This is just to show that this is JavaScript. It also works even though it's being processed in JavaScript, because it's in the rendering ending. All these things I would never be able to do in an infrastructure-based component. So that was the very, very short demo.
We do have a little bit of contact information. I'll find you if they need more demo. I can take over the sharing. All right. Well, I have to say thank you both for a lot of really good content. I absolutely feel the need to talk even more about this and my passion for extensions and ad blocking, but we don't have time for that. We'll have to take that offline. As this presentation was going, I actually caught some security people on Mastodon talking about the proliferation and the rise of malicious extensions for browsers that they had noticed over the past few weeks. So, I mean, the timing here is absolutely excellent. So again, I'm going to do, we didn't have any questions, so I'm going to do a super simple wrap up. We have this one here where, there's going to be a post-seminar webinar survey. If you want to test it, we can definitely help you out with that. If you want to have a more extensive demo, feel free to reach out to us, no problem. And we have Christian, who is the contact person. So if you have any more questions about Prisma Browser, direct it to him. You'll find my email. You'll probably find Martin's email as well on Conscia.no and SE and DK. So you'll find us if you want to find us. And with that, I absolutely would thank both our presenters and everyone, the 52 people who managed to stay on until the bitter end. And thanks to our marketing people for setting this up and allowing us to go over time. So with that, I think we end it here, and I hope everyone has a really nice day.
Thank you, everyone.